All right, so in lesson 5, we're going to talk about how we can summarize quantitative data in a new type of display called the box plot. But before we get there, I want to show you a little trick. Again, this was in the first video. But again, you can find all the summary statistics that you need just with one kind of command on a calculator, okay? The steps, again, are in here. They're in your notes. And again, this was in the first video that you watched. The steps, okay? When you input, again, that list in the stat command in your calculator, you get this whole output, this whole list. So just refresher on what all of these stats are. The first one, the x bar, again, that's going to be your mean value. The sum of x, that's just the sum of all the x's. So the sum of everything together. This is the sum of x's squared. Sx, like we've been talking about, this is my sample standard deviation. I'm just going to write standard dev. When you see the thing below it, that is the population standard deviation. We're not going to talk a lot about the population standard deviation in this class. It is a little bit different than the sample standard deviation. In college, you're going to talk, if you take a stats class, a lot more about the difference between the two. N, that's the number of data points in your set. The min x, that's the minimum value. Q1, we know is our lower quartile. So then if I keep going, the med, we know is the median. And then Q3, I know is my upper quartile. And then max x, that is my maximum. So again, from here, you get your full 5-number summary, you get your standard deviation, and you get your mean. So you can also then calculate my IQR and my range because I have the statistics that I need to for that. So that's how you read when it pops up on a calculator, the different statistics you're given. So I have these data points and I want to find the summary stats of this set. So a little refresher on how you're going to do this. So what you're going to do, you're going to go ahead over to stat. So I'm going to click on the stat button, and then I'm going to hit enter on edit. And I'm going to type in the data values that I have. So I have 13, enter, 19, 12, 45, 19, 27, 90, 67, 9, 14, and 22. Okay, so I've input, again, all of my data values into my list. So now what we can do is we can go ahead back to stat. We're going to arrow over to calc, hit enter on one variable stats. Make sure that the list that you input your data into is right there. So I'm working with my L1 list, and then I can go ahead and hit enter. And so I get all of these values when I go ahead and do that. So I get all of my summary statistics here. Okay, so when I go, if I want to write these down in my notes. So all the summary statistics, again, that is going to be the following. First off, the mean, which is at X bar. My mean is approximately 30.64 when I round to the nearest hundredth. My sample standard deviation, which is my SX. That is approximately 26.10. And then I want my 5-number summary. So my minimum, my lower quartile, my median, my upper quartile, and my maximum. And then straight from my calculator, I get my minimum is 9, my lower quartile is 13, my median is 19, my upper quartile is 45, and my maximum is 90. So again, that's how you find the summary stats on your calculator. From here on out, all that you need to do to find this information is just put it into your calculator. Put in all the data into the list, and then you can just work with the stats straight from that list, okay? All right, next up we have outliers. So we've been talking about outliers when we were describing distributions, data distributions, and we've been saying again that these are apparent outliers. They appear to be outliers because they appear very far from the rest of the data set in terms of spacing and in terms of value. However, we now have a rule to determine if I actually have an outlier or not. Okay, this rule is called the 1.5 IQR rule. Okay, and so now we can drop when we say apparent, because we can now mathematically find, do I actually have one or do I not? Okay, so the first rule is that you need to find your IQR. So you first need to find your IQR, your lower quartiles and your upper quartiles. We have a low outlier is going to be a value that is less than Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR. And we have a high outlier is going to be greater than my upper quartile plus 1.5 times my IQR. So these are just, again, this is the 1.5 IQR rule, okay? That's the rule. And those are the rules, the inequalities that we follow to figure out, do I truly have a mathematical outlier or do I not? Okay, so I have a survey was given to a random sample of 20 sophomore level college students on how many textbooks they own. The responses and summary statistics are shown below. So first thing I need to do is I need to find my upper and my lower quartiles. So these are given to me. So I have Q3 and Q1. So I know Q1 is 8. I know that Q3 is 12. Finding the IQR, we know that IQR is Q3 minus Q1. So Q3 minus Q1 is 12 minus 8. 12 minus 8 is 4. So then the next thing you need to do is do 1.5 times your IQR. So I'm going to do 1.5 times 4. And when I put that into my calculator, 1.5 times 4, that gets me 6. Okay? So now what I need to do is I need to take my lower quartile and subtract 1.5 times my IQR. So I have my Q1 is 8. My 1.5 times my IQR is 6. So 8 minus 6 is 2. And now look at Q3 plus 1.5 times my IQR. So I'm going to have my upper quartile as 12. And I'm going to add that 1.5 IQR, which is 6. So 18. So these are the two values that we say are kind of the boundaries, okay? Anything between and including 2 and 18, those are not considered mathematical outliers, okay? But anything below 2, anything above 18 is mathematically considered an outlier. So if I take a look at my data set, I do have a few outliers here. I have 2 low outliers, and I also have 2 high outliers, okay? Because, again, I have 2 data points that fall below 2. I have 2 data points that are above 18. So, yes, I do have outliers here. I have 2 low outliers, the 2 zeros, and I have 2 high outliers. That's my 20 and my 25. Okay, so those are the steps that you need to take to go ahead and find if you actually mathematically have low outliers, okay? If you mathematically have low or if you mathematically have high outliers, okay? So if I go ahead, I bounce then to the next one, okay? The dot plot below shows fuel economy ratings for a sample of model year 2015 vehicles tested by the EPA. So I have 2 apparent outliers, and I want to verify that these are in fact actual outliers, okay? So what I need to do is I need to first off I need to find my Q1, I need to find my Q3, and I need to find my IQR, okay? So if I need to find my lower quartile, my upper quartile, and my IQR. I can go ahead and I can just put these data values into my calculator if I want to. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to edit my list. So just off like what I did, I'm going to go ahead, take a picture of this real quick. Okay. So again, I can go ahead and put these values into my calculator. So let's go ahead, let's do that. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to clear my list out. I'm going to go ahead up. enter. All right, so I can go ahead and enter in all of my dot values now. So I have 16, 23, 24, the 27, 29, 2 30s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 31s. So 31, 31, 31, 31, 31, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. 32 and 32. And finally 40. Okay, so again, I have those 16 data points. So I'm then gonna go ahead, once I enter that in, I'm gonna go to stat. I'm gonna go over to calc, one variable stats, enter. And I'm gonna look at my lower quartile and my upper quartile. So I have my Q1 is 28, I have my Q3 is 31. So now we can go ahead back and we can mark that. So I have Q1 was 28 and Q3 is 31, I believe. Just double check that. 28 and 31. All right, so now I can go ahead, I can find my IQR. So my IQR is 31 minus 28, which is 3. So next step, we need to do 1.5 times my IQR. So I'm gonna go ahead and bounce over here now. So this was all like that background work. So now 1.5 times my IQR is 1.5 times 3, which is 4.5. So I now need to do Q1 minus that 1.5 IQR, and I need to do Q3 plus 1.5 times my IQR. So that's going to be 28 minus my 4.5 equals 23.5. And 31 plus 4.5 gets me 35.5. So again, anything that is outside of these values are considered mathematical outliers. So I do, in fact, again, have 2 outliers. I have my one low outlier, which is the value of 16. And I have one high outlier, which is that value of 40. Okay, so again, that's how mathematically you show if you have an outlier or not with the 1.5 IQR rule. Get the upper, the lower, find the IQR, 1.5 times it, add, subtract, see if anything falls outside of that value.